Ladies and gentlemen, popping off in Valorant is more than just being able to click heads. Sometimes you need to pick the perfect weapon for every situation. Whether you're popping off an eco round or simply want to use the best weapons available, picking the right weapon for the right situation means that you give yourself the perfect tools in order to have the most impact and dominate the opposition. Speaking of dominate, don't forget to dominate that subscribe button. That's right, go and click it down below so you don't miss out on any of the in-depth VOD reviews that we have in the pipeline, like Shroud, Hiko, and much more. Smash it right now. Anyways, without further ado, let's just jump right into it, shall we? So kicking it off with the first type of weapon on the entire list, and it's the weapon stealer. That's right, these weapons are weapons that you don't want to hold on to. They're weapons that excel at a certain thing, and you can use them to abuse enemies in your effective range, stealing their better gun, and basically getting an upgrade for free. The three big weapon stealers in the game are the Frenzy, the Bucky, and the Shorty. Now you might notice that all three of these guns have something in common. That's right, they are effective from very close range, but they are not to be underestimated. Even if the enemy has a very good gun, something like a Vandal or Phantom, at the closer ranges, these can still level the playing field. These guns essentially have one goal: cheese a kill and yoink their weapon. Now, the best characters at using these close range guns are characters with some form of mobility or some sort of trap / utility that can best set up these type of weapons. Characters like Jet that have a way to get out from close angles, or characters like Omen that can flank behind the enemy. These characters are definitely great with the shotguns. Specifically, a character like Cypher, a Shorty can be fantastic because if an enemy walks into his trap, he can just peek right around the corner, kill them, take their gun, and business as usual. Now, generally, the nature of this strat is that it's pretty all in, and what you should never do when you are rocking these guns is you should never take a long distance engagement, and I mean ever. Every time you cross from one natural cover to the next, you should probably be using smoke if you can at all help it, but you never want to peek any enemy long range. A big factor of this strat in the first place is, especially if you're rocking a Bucky or a Shorty, you cannot let the enemy know that this is what you have before they're already dead. A huge aspect of this is the element of surprise, and if you give up the element of surprise, enemies are just not going to take any close range fights with you, and that is a nightmare scenario. So definitely hit them hard, hit them fast. Make sure that you never show yourself and you never show your weapon until it's too late and you already stole your enemy's operator or whatever gun that they have. You already upgraded your weapon with the perfect weapon stealer. Now, the next weapon group that we're going to talk about is the high skill clutch guns. These are guns that specifically let you win versus far more expensive guns if you pop off or you're just way better than the enemy. Now, there's two guns in this category: the Marshal, which is better at longer ranges, and the Sheriff, which is better at shorter ranges. Now, for their price point, 1100 at the Marshal and 800 at the Sheriff, these guns can actually destroy Vandals and even Operators if you're playing in these guns' effective range, because both these guns can one-shot headshot. Now, there's a few little caveats before you play these guns. The first thing is you gotta be feeling it. You can't whip out these guns when you're not feeling like you're invincible, like you're nuts. This is a gun for someone who just has a feeling, that you're going to hit your shots. Maybe you're popping off that game, maybe you're feeling really good. You gotta be feeling it before you buy these guns. And then the second thing that you need to do is you gotta play in your effective range. You don't want to be taking longer engagements with the Sheriff, because sometimes even if you hit that first headshot, it's not gonna kill them right away because you're too far away. So you gotta make sure that you're playing from a closer range because you want to get multiple shots off on the enemy. Now, with the Marshal in particular, you really need to be using that long range aspect. It's one thing dueling Operators from longer ranges. Of course, it's going to be harder for you. You have to hit that headshot. But against guns like Vandals and Phantoms, you do not want to be playing super close to them, because then it's just going to be really hard for you to hit your shot. It makes it harder for you to clutch up. So you need to be playing in your range at least, so you give yourself the opportunity to pop off at the very least, instead of putting yourself in like a really difficult scenario. Now, the one tip that I would have for you about the Marshal that a lot of people might not know is that if you're crouching with the Marshal in particular, this doesn't apply to the Operator, but with the Marshal, if you're crouching, not moving, the hip fire, not zooming in, but just the regular hip fire on the Marshall, is actually fairly accurate. It's almost dead accurate. So keep that in mind. If you can double body shot some enemies from pretty far away, that could be a way that you can cheese out some kills with the Marshall. Now, the thing that you should never do when you're trying to play these guns, specifically the Sheriff, is try not to take an even fight if you can help it. Sheriff is definitely capable of a really fast time to kill, but it's even better if you could set up some sort of flash like Reyna, Phoenix, Breach. These characters in particular can use this gun really well because if you can flash an enemy that's coming around the corner, you could turn the corner. If you can get off the headshots, if you're feeling it, you could pop off and kill the enemy. But generally, try not to take a straight up 50-50 with the enemy, especially if there's multiple enemies. Even if you're popping off, it's going to be pretty difficult. Moving on to the next gun category, it's the essentials. And speaking of essential, it is essential for you to smash the like button. In fact, if you don't smash the like button, then meteors are just going to start raining out of the sky. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but if you care about the future, then smash that like button. Anyways, so let's move on to essentials, and these are guns you probably know. I'm not going to go into depth with these, but there's 5 guns, and they're the best guns in the game, of course. The Vandal, the Phantom, the Operator, the Ghost, and the Spectre. They're just the best at what they do at the given price point. I guess I could also include the classic pistol in here, but the point of this is that these guns are just the creme de la creme, the best of the best. Now, while we're talking about essentials, I might as well break down the Vandal versus the Phantom. Now, the Vandal is pretty much more effective at all ranges besides the closest of ranges, and that is incredibly powerful. A lot of the pros are coming out and just saying that the Vandal is better the majority of the time. It is the worst feeling in the world to hit a headshot on the Phantom and still die, so Vandal can definitely be your go-to, especially if you're going to be playing from longer ranges past that 15-meter mark. Now, what scenarios would I play the Phantom over it? Well, Phantom does have more of a clip, which is not nothing. That is a pretty big deal, and it's silent. So in general, Phantom is going to be far better at wall banging because you're not going to give away your position, and you're going to be able to wall bang more with a bigger clip. So that's really important with characters that have a lot of smoke or want to take in close engagements. The Phantom can be better. But for the majority, the Vandal will be better. But for some reason, the Phantom just feels so much easier for me to fire. I don't know if that's just me or if it's you. I know that the Vandal is just better, but I keep going back to the Phantom because it just feels so good. But maybe that's just me. Definitely let me know in the comments down below. Now, the next question, of course, that comes up with the essential guns is it worth it to buy the Ghost? We've went over this in depth in one of our in-depth pistol guides, but to sum it up here, yes, it's worth it to buy the Ghost if you don't have better utility to buy. Utility is insanely powerful, and if you're someone with powerful utility, someone like Sage, someone like Cypher, then it's better for you to play with the Classic because the Classic is comparable. It still can two-shot. It can't one-shot, but it can still two-shot pretty easily without armor. So it definitely is comparable to the Ghost, and that slight buff power level is not worth it if you have really powerful utility you could tap into instead. But for a couple members of your team, and infiltrators/duelers in particular, having a Ghost and a little bit of utility can definitely be worth it if it ups that DPS. Now, lastly, in the essentials category, we have to talk about the Operator, and the Operator is just nuts. It's just insane in this game. Pros are actually triple stacking ops. Can you believe it? They're triple stacking ops in tournaments. And Hiko perfectly described why this is happening, and it comes down to how Valorant is compared to CS. While in CS, every single character can have smokes and flashes, in this game, smokes and flashes are limited, and if you bait out the smokes early, then no one has any smokes later on. And in that environment, operators are just nuts. They're just completely insane. Some big tips for you if you're using an operator: take notice in the top left screen before the round starts, because if you can get to an angle first, then you can easily run to that angle, whip out your op, and hold that angle. And it's so simple to flick to a target that just runs through an angle. It is very, very simple if you can hold that angle first before they get there. Now, another tip, though, is make sure that you give yourself enough room for flicking. It's instinctive for people to want to hug the wall, but generally, you want to make it a little bit off the wall, so if someone wide swings it, you can flick to them, and if they short swing it, you can flick back towards the wall. You give yourself a little bit more wiggle room. Now, the thing that you should never do when you're using an op is never peek an angle that you can't reach first if you're up against another operator. The reason is, if you peek that angle, they can just shoot you, and all they have to do is just react to seeing you, while you have to flip your body around and shoot them at the same time you're stopping. It is just way too difficult. If the enemy has enough money to buy an operator, never peek that angle unless you can reach it first. Now, moving on to the next gun category that we have to talk about, and this is the last category, but it's a really cool one. It's the XFactor, the strat weapons. And what these weapons are these weapons that, when played with a specific strategy or in a specific way, they can get surprising value. The 3 weapons in this category are the Judge, the Ares, and kind of the Odin as well. Now, the Judge is the best with Jet. We just went over an in-depth VOD with her about a Jet that kind of just flew in, updrafted, and flied around with the Judge, which isn't a style that I would suggest for anyone by any means. Like, no one should just pick up this style and make it theirs, but there is some amount of value that you can whip out if you just bring an untraditional strategy with the Judge. With Omen, with Viper, with Jet, the close range nature of the Judge and the fast time to kill with the Judge means that if you ever sneak up behind an enemy or you get close to an enemy with the Judge, you can take one target after the next. Unlike the Bucky, the Shorty, the Frenzy, the Judge has the capability to just snowball kills over and over and over again, and that's why it's specifically good in those tight eco rounds. Let's say you popped off a round, but everyone's saving, but you have just enough money, you have 3,500. Buying a Judge, even without armor, can allow you to potentially clutch up an entire round, because if you can hold a corner and enemies aren't ready for you, and you just turn 1 kill into 2 into 3, that could be a way that you flip the advantage of an entire team fight. Now, just like with the shotguns, make sure that you never peek the longer ranges at all. It's very vital because the Judge is pretty poor from anything outside like 10 meters, so just keep that in mind. Now, the next weapon we're going to talk about is the Ares, and having one Ares user on a team, even if the rest of the team is using assault rifles, is actually nutty, and a lot of pro players are rocking it. It's specifically on Haven's metal doors. Being able to break the metal doors and wallbang them on attack or defense is incredibly powerful, especially with Silver, where you can set up a perfect recon arrow. It allows you to set up these scenarios where you basically know where the enemy is, you break the wall, line up the wall bang, and just kill them when they have no counterplay. Unless they would have stopped the recon arrow, that's pretty much all they could do. Now, in general, with the Ares, as another use besides just Haven, is that you can clear all the wall bangable areas, especially places like Hookah Unbind or even the midpoint of Split. There's a lot of places where you can just wall bang everything. Simply just wall bang everything, and you're either gonna flush enemies out of these places that they're hiding in, or you're gonna know that enemies aren't even there, and that's really cool because you could save a lot of utility. Instead of having to check behind all these boxes with either your primary fire, which is inefficient from other guns like Vandal or Phantom, or you're gonna have to flush it out with utility, being able to just check every single wall bangable spot with the Ares as one person is very powerful. It's great for taking space and controlling an entire area. Now, the thing that you should never do is never swing peek with an Ares. It is so slow to swing peek with an Ares and ramp up the ammo. Because of this, if you swing peek someone with an AR, they're going to be able to just headshot you so quickly, you're not going to be able to kill them. You don't really want to be playing on that axis. You don't want to be playing a straight up swing battle with the Ares. You want to be in that wall bang zone, and you want to be zoning enemies away. Now, the last tip that I'll give with you for the Ares, and less so with the Odin, because the Odin has a lot more ammo, but it's a lot more expensive, so you're going to buy it a lot less. Just keep in mind your ammo count. After you wallbang the heck out of everything, sometimes you go a little bit overboard and you realize that you have no ammo left. So just keep that in mind, and if you ever trade out, oftentimes after you wallbanged all the spots that you were trying to do, you got that initiating space creation at the beginning, and you traded out with some of the enemies, it's usually better to take a different gun. Pick a Vandal or a Phantom or a Spectre up, so that you can change the guns that you have going into the later rounds of the match. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Smash that like button so you don't miss out on any other in-depth content guides or anything else we have to offer. If you have any big suggestions, or if you have any big pro players that you want to see, maybe you want to see Asu, or maybe you want to see more Shroud or anything, any pro players that you want to see in-depth breakdowns on, definitely let me know in the comments down below. Anyways, I think that's all we got for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time,